Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Crowd Chatter Podcast. And today we're going to get into the first week of NFL off-season reviews or off-season videos. We're going over every team in every division, going division by division, of course. In this video, we'll be doing the NFC East. So I'll basically I explained this in the other video that I already did, but what we'll be doing for these videos is I'll be going over some of the big changes that they made. I didn't go over actually the draft picks or any of the other teams that I did in the last video, but I'll try to mention those. I kind of forgot to do that, but oh well. Um, so, big time draft picks that they've made or, off season changes, whatever that might be. Does, things, big things to mention that happened in the off season, like, big things that people would probably want to know about. I mean, for the Jets, I forgot about their 3 first rounders and the Dolphins getting Caden Proctor. Grr, I wanted him as a Lion. But, you guys get the point. Um, So let's just get into this video. We'll start with the Washington Commanders here, who were 5-12 last year, and well, I don't know how much better it's going to get. I will put myself on record as not being the biggest fan of Washington, but they'll start both the season on the road against the Eagles and the Cowboys. Before heading home to take on the Seahawks, and then this is an international game. Is that a London game? I believe it's a London game. It is. So this is going to London to take on the Indy Colts. Um, Home to the New York Giants, on the road against the 49ers. Then they'll be back home to take on the Eagles and the Rams, on the road against the Giants. Home to the Bengals, on the road against the Cardinals and the Titans. Home to the Texans and Falcons. On the road against the Vikings and Jaguars before finishing the year at home against the Cowboys. So, um, just getting it started off. Like I said, I forgot to mention the first round picks in the last video. I'll actually do that this time. Big pick obviously was Sonny Styles from Ohio State, getting him at linebacker. Um, the running back room is a little scary in Washington. I mean, there's really a bit of a lacking presence there. Wide receiver also behind Terry McLaurin's a little like offensive line has not been overly enticing for Washington as well. They tried adding some guys on defense, getting Odafe Owe and Leo Chenal at linebacker. Amik Robertson in at corner. Nick Cross, I believe, as a safety. Yep. Bringing him in as safety. So I mean, they're definitely trying to make this defense a bit better and make this team a bit better. How much better will it make it? Well, I don't think they're winning any of the first 3 games here. I think they'll start the year 0-3. I like all these teams better than Washington. I'll give them the win over the Indy Colts. I think they can get it done against Indy. I'll have them split with the Giants because the Giants. I think give them the home. Both teams win at home. So kind of like how I do a lot of those. They won't beat the Niners. I don't think they beat the Eagles either time. I don't think they'll beat the Rams either. I don't think. And I've said this in the last video. I don't think anyone's beating the Rams. Um, and like I said, they split home and road with the Giants. So I'll have them lose that one as well. Um, I'll give them the win over the Bengals. Sure. I think they're at least a little bit better than Cincinnati. Um, as for the other ones, I think they can beat the Cardinals. I'll give them the Titan game as well. Houston, too good of a defense. The Falcons, I can see them winning that. That's just an Atlanta thing to do is somehow to lose, but I'll give them a win there. What's them at 5? Yeah, okay. Um, I could see them beating the Vikings too, but I won't do it. I'll have them losing to the Jags and Cowboys as well to end the year. I am at 5-12, which is probably the worst case scenario for Washington. Um, I could see them winning a couple more games, maybe going 7-10. This isn't a terrible team. Um, I'm giving them some games as well, but I don't know. It's going to be tough. I think it'll be hard for them to win some of those. Like I said, they could beat Atlanta. Maybe Houston has a really bad offensive game and they still end up beating them. Um, Tentatively, I'm going to say 5-12. I could see 7-10. I could see a lot of different outcomes. I'm just not big into Washington. I've said that several times. I'm not big into the Washington team. I don't think they're that special. Um, you know, we'll see if things look a little bit better for them soon. But if you're asking me right now, I'm not overly enthusiastic about their chances. But then we go to the Dallas Cowboys. Oh boy, this is gonna be fun. This is a team I actually think has a very good chance of really turning some things around and really impressing some stuff. I'm changing something real quick here, guys. Um, there we go. Um, but I think this is a team that has a very good chance of really turning some things around this year and maybe possibly making a small little run. But the Dallas Cowboys, they start the year on the road against the New York Giants, the first Sunday night game of the year, actually. And then we'll get the Washington Commanders at home before they get another one of many, many international games this year. This one, actually, the Brazil game. They'll be in Rio taking on the Baltimore Ravens. On the road again in Houston, battle for Texas against the Texans. Home to the Tampa Bay Bucks. On the road against the Packers and Eagles, as well as the Colts with an Arizona home game sandwiched in between there, between Philly and Indy. Home games against the Niners, Titans, and Eagles. The Eagle game being the Thanksgiving game. Well, there's quite a bevy of great Thanksgiving games this year. On the road against the Seahawks before a bye week. I'm sorry. A road game against the Seahawks with a bye week following that before another road game against the Rams. Home games against the Jags and Giants before finishing the year in Washington. Uh, I'm trying to remember to mention more draft picks this year, but I think Dallas absolutely nailed the draft this year. You look at what they did in the offseason. They know they have a defense problem. They obviously were able to score with no issue last year between CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, with a renaissance year from Javonte Williams, who actually stayed healthy and ran for 1,000 yards, which we know he's talented. We just never knew if he'd stay healthy enough to show it, but he finally did for once. And if he does that again, well, that'll be nice. You got a good tight end group, and Jake Ferguson leading the way, and even Luke Schoonmaker right behind him, solid player as well, and drafting him pretty high. Um, but on defense, I mean, you look at the guys that they've now just amassed. You got Quentin Williams, Kenny Clark, Rashawn Gary. You drafted now Caleb Downs, and you drafted where's the U.S. There he is, U.S. Or UCF guy, Malachi Lawrence, who is a big talent as well. I mean, they've added a ton of defense this year. They've drafted some corners. I mean, I love what they did on defense. Now, obviously, whether it all comes together and actually, they actually all play well, that's, another story. But, you know, I have reasonable, faith in Dallas really turning some heads here this year. On the road against the Giants, though, to start the year, this is really tough because I think if this was in the middle of the year, I think the Giants could get them. But I don't. It's hard for me to say they will. I'll give Washington the win or I'm sorry, Dallas the win over Washington as well. Um, Ravens and Texans. Both of these I can see Dallas winning, but I can also see them losing them. I'll give both Baltimore and Houston the wins there. Really, really tough games of heck, but I guess I'll go with 2 wins for those two L's. I'll give Tampa the win. Dallas literally never beats Green Bay, so I'll say they lose that one, and I don't think they win in Philly either. They'll beat Washington. They'll beat Indy. I'll give them an upset win over the 49ers. It's a home game. Obviously, they don't have the greatest history against San Francisco, but it's a home game. Um, I'll give it to them. I'll give them a Titan win as well. Home game against Philly, I'll have them split there. They will not beat, I don't think, Seattle. They certainly will not beat the Rams either. I'll give them a home game against the Jags, and then they'll win at home against the Giants, and then they'll beat Washington as well. So with that being said, I have the Cowboys going 11-6. They were 7-9-1 last year because they had a tie with the Packers. Um, they could lose the San Fran game. They could maybe win a couple more here and there. Um, I think pretty much right on that cut line and of being in the wild card is a fair way of putting it. Obviously, the offense has to continue to look great and amongst other things, but um, I think that's certainly possible for Dallas. And if that really does end up coming to fruition, I think that the Cowboys could have a very good year this year. Do I think they'll win a Super Bowl? Absolutely not. And I know that people know Dallas fans, but um, I think they definitely have a very good shot of being much better this year, significantly improved. And if that's the case, man, Dallas has something to look forward to. Well, let's go to the Philadelphia Eagles next here. Um, this team's like on and off with being like great and not great, which doesn't really make any sense, but somehow that keeps on happening. Um, so let's just go into it with the Philadelphia Eagles. Starting the year, the Eagles will be at home against Washington. Then we'll be on the road against the Titans and Bears before a home game against the Rams, and then they will also be in a international game where they'll go to London to take on the Jags. Home once again to the Panthers and Cowboys before going on the road to take on Washington. Back home to face the Giants. At home against the Steelers, on the road against the Cowboys and Cardinal, or I'm sorry, on the road against the Dallas, or I did say on the road, right? On the road against the Cowboys and Cardinals, home to the Colts, Seahawks, and Texans, before finishing the year on the road against the Niners and Giants. Um, Billy, obviously, I mentioned this when I was doing the other when I was doing the other East Division. No more AJ Brown. He has been traded away to the New England Patriots. The Patriots have now taken him on board. Um, so, obviously now the question, now they'll probably be going with Makai Lemon, which was their first round pick, big time receiver out of USC. Not as big of a body as AJ Brown, obviously, but bringing him on board. You also traded for Dontavian Wicks. They signed Hollywood Brown. They signed Elijah Moore. So they're trying to fill that hole with something. With what? Who knows? But they're definitely trying to fill that hole in some capacity. Obviously, still Saquon Barkley. Defense is still nasty with several great players. Also, now, and does bring in Jonathan Greenard, and Tariq Woolen, with already having Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. I mean, I think this will become a more of a good defensive team and maybe offensive. Losing AJ Brown is going to be a little tough for them. I mean, we'll see how Makai Lemon turns out, but they're obviously putting a lot on his shoulders. Dontavian Wicks is not necessarily impressed in the NFL. Elijah Moore has been a major disappointment, and Hollywood Brown has become an NFL journeyman. So, expecting any one of those guys to turn in actual plays for you might be pushing it. I'll have them winning though against Washington and Tennessee. I think they'll lose to the Bears and the Rams. I like both of those teams better. In London against the Jags, I think that could be close, but I'll give it to the Eagles. I think they can beat the Panthers. They might be able to win all of those. It's a home game, so yeah, I'll give it to them. They'll beat the Steelers. I think they'll lose to the Cowboys. Um, the Cardinals stink, so they'll beat Arizona. Um, it'll be interesting though for them this year. I think they can beat the Colts. I'll give a little late season slide here. Seattle, Houston, and San Fran all knock them off, but then Oh man, no, I can't give it to the Giants. I have to give it to Philly. And so with that being the case, a little late season slide, which is a very Philly thing to do. They'll go 11-6. Um, there's a lot of outcomes for them. I think they can certainly explode this year. They could completely collapse. Um, if they don't win a Super Bowl, they might just fire Nick Sirianni because Philly fans. Sorry if you're a Philly fan, I apologize, but most Philly fans just don't have any patience at all. I mean, listen, like they were a year removed from winning the Super Bowl, had a bit of a had a not so great season, and all of them were calling for Sirianni's head. Now, do I think Sirianni has any brains at all? No. He doesn't win you a Super Bowl, and you're trying to get rid of him a year later. Like, what the heck? But 11-6 with the Eagles. This is a team that just they always have the talent, but it's just a question of whatever produce. Because it seems like a lot of times they just don't seem to put it all together all at once. I don't get it. It's weird, but it's just something that Philly always seems to do. And then next we have the New York Giants with John Harbaugh now at the helm, brand new coaching staff in New York. Um, this is going to be a very interesting year for the Giants. I can see it being an absolutely outstanding year. I can see it being an absolutely terrible year. There's a lot of questions still around whether or not Malik Neighbors will even play for this team. They did have 2 first-round picks in both Arvell Reese and uh, the offensive lineman from Miami. Don't even ask me how to pronounce his name. I don't know how it's pronounced. But they will start the year at home against the Cowboys in the first game of Sunday Night Football, then on the road against the Rams, home to the Titans and Cardinals, on the road against Washington, home to the Saints, on the road against the Houston Texans before they get their bye. Then on the road against Philly, home to Washington and Jacksonville, before going on the road to face the Indy Colts, home to the San Fran Niners, on the road against the Seattle Seahawks, home to the Browns, and then at the line on the road against the Lions and Cowboys before finishing the year home against the Eagles. Um, this is a giant team that I can see pulling off some wins here and there and surprising some people. Um, but I think they'll at least lose the first 2. I'll give them, a nice bevy of wins here between the Titans and the Cardinals, and also the Saints. I don't like New Orleans at all. Um, I think they'll take an L on the road against Washington. Like I said earlier, I had them splitting that. In Houston, I gotta say no. Um, and also a no on Philly, but then I think they'll beat Washington. Um, which would at that point we would put them at 5-5. I'll give them an upset win over the Jags. I think that's possible. On the road against the Colts, I don't like Indy. I'm giving them a win there. Um, I'm gonna go with a stretch of losses here, and then they'll beat the Browns, and then I'll have them just lose the last 3 games of the season. With that being the case, I think I have them going. Is that 7-10? I believe it is. Yeah, 7-10, which I think is a very possible outcome for them. Um, I'm just kind of like going through this on the fly. I'm not really like very much like really going into this stuff, but I mean they have a good defensive core with some solid players overall. I mean Brian Burns is still in there, obviously. Abdul Carter. They've traded some guys away. They had quite a load of studs earlier on, but they let some of them go. But this is still a very good team. This is a nasty group. On defense, they have some good offensive players as well. I mean, Jackson Dart, I think, has a very bright future. A lot of questions on how healthy Malik Neighbors is, but I think he's got serious potential if he's able to come back and look like the same player after the torn ACL. Isaiah Likely now being the guy at tight end, I think that could be very prosperous. Patrick Ricard is just and does another back. He's just a big back, but he's a solid player as well. Um, just a lot of solid players in New York. With new leadership now and John Harbaugh, can they get maybe some of those wins against, say, on the road against Washington or, maybe home against Dallas or, you know, I think they have a chance of maybe being a wild card team, but I'm not ready to crown them that yet. I think we gotta see something. We gotta see it from them first before I start crowning them like, oh, they're about to make it to the postseason. Well, we haven't seen anything from it yet. So, I like a little bit of some proof that they're actually that much better. I mean, I'm already giving them obviously a pretty serious improvement from their 4-13 year, putting them at 7-10. But um, you know, placing them in the wild card, it's like, well, let me see it first before I start, giving them that kind of praise. But that's all I have for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll be seeing you next time when we get some more of these coming out. They'll be out next week, probably on Monday. Um, or not Monday, probably actually Tuesday. But they'll be coming out soon. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I'll see you next time. Until then, adios, everyone.